Good evening, everyone. This is the Black Post. This evening, the message will be sent. So, the first 100 days of Joe Biden's cabinet. Let's see what he has done. So, usually, in the president's first 100 days, the lobbyists, their constituents, the people who voted for them, like you and I, not me, but most likely you, voted for Joe Biden thinking that he was going to do something specifically for black people, but all the other content, all the other videos that I've given over the course of time, even before he was even running for president, he has time and time again told black people that he's going to do nothing for us. But a lot of us took to the polls, got our booty to the polls, electric slide in the voting lines, stayed in voting for 4, 6, 8 hours on end. And Joe Biden did absolutely nothing for black people in his first 100 days. This is a joke. But time and time again, you'll have your boot looking ass kissers to take up for Joe Biden and say, well, he can't do nothing just for black people. But when I look at this and I check and I see that he's done a lot for everyone else except for foundational black Americans. So here's some of the reversals that Joe Biden went into his first 100 days. As you can tell, he reversed 10 laws, 10 policies that directly affected immigration. But ladies and gentlemen, for the past 60 years, the Democratic Party has done nothing for black people, let alone we don't even need to address the right. The Republicans has done nothing either. I will have to let you know if this is your first time listening to me. I don't sway to any political party, but I think it's very notable that we understand the benign neglect that these presidents have had for black people for a very long time, and that we're not holding their feet to the fire because we have people out there, a lot of you, those boule, buck kicking, HBCU people who go out there and vote and parlay with other black people just to get the vote, just for them to get positions. Not all from HBCUs, but a lot. They're groomed. And the number one thing that you guys have to be aware of are immigrants. They bring the buffer class over here to simply to undermine and undercut the black vote in order to win time and time again. This is about two things. This is about power. This is about money. And as long as black people are the underclass, white supremacy will reign in America. You guys haven't noticed that Kamala Harris was asked a question: do you believe that America is a racist country? And she said no. She does not believe America is a racist country. But we have a lot of issues and problems that we need to deal with. Anytime you use the word but, it neglects everything that you said before. So let's look at some of these executive orders that Joe Biden actually went into. We won't go over all of them, but I believe we need to go over a few of them to understand the things that he have done for other groups and other people. So we get into labor, but the main thing, immigration. He has reversed a lot of immigration policies that Donald Trump had put into place. Who does that help? It helps immigrants, most likely Hispanic and Asian immigrants. Not some of the African diaspora immigrants coming from the Caribbean as well as Africa. No, not them. Not per se, not them. But the Hispanics as well as the Asians. And as I scroll through this nothing burger of an executive order list, I'm looking at all the things that Joe Biden has done, not for black people, but for his own special interests. See, what happens is when you bring in a buffer class and you most likely bring in those people who will vote for you, skin color, special interests, those who you can turn. But time and time again, Joe Biden, just as well as Donald Trump, just as well as Obama, just as well as George Bush, have always avoided the reparations, have always avoided doing anything for black people. Now, even in this, it says here that revokes a series of 7 Trump administration's actions that has eased regulatory requirements. It then goes down and says funding from cities allowing protests in support of Black Lives Matter. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is a nothing burger. You have the right to protest under the Constitution. You have the right to protest under the Constitution. Expands United States refugee admissions program. Ensure that LGBTQI refugees and asylum seekers have equal access to protection. See, ladies and gentlemen, he will do things for the immigrant coon class that he brings in, LGBTQI, just like they tried to impose some paper thin sanctions on some African countries because they was not allowing them to be homosexual. It was like it's against the law here. Now, I don't want to get into the whole homosexual talk. I'm pretty sure you guys know where I stand, but that's neither here nor there in reference to what he is doing, everything for everyone else. Now, some of you are saying, well, LGBTQI also includes black people. But again, this is a special group of black people that doesn't pertain to the entire race. But we establish a foundation. We will establish a base so you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Because we need to understand we are citizens of this country. We are foundational Black Americans. Our ancestry has started before the country was even a country, before the Constitution, the Emancipation Proclamation was even ever thought of. See, our date back 1526. That's our start date. Not including the hundreds of years that we probably already explored this land prior to. But I will move on. You're going to see all sorts of executive orders. But yet again, you will see nothing for us. And I'll get there. And as I'm looking through the equity, I would like to do a quick search. And I want to show you. Acknowledge the rise in discrimination against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the past year, directing the Department of Health and Human Services to consider issuing guidance on best practice to improve cultural competency, language access, and sensitivity toward the AAPI community. Okay, so far a nothing burger. But this was all start to give the Asian community protections under the law. Now, we don't need to talk about the racism and discrimination and racist bias in this country against foundational Black Americans, African Americans, for those stemming back from 1526, even from 1790. See, that's what we need to understand. When your president tells you that he can't do anything, and also your vice president, Kamala Harris, AKA Sister Girl, AKA I'm wearing Chuck Dillis to fit in, AKA I listen to Jay-Z and Tupac so I can get the black vote. We have to understand when she was asked that question, most famous question that we all know, she asked, are you in support of reparations? And the ending answer was, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm going to do something just for African Americans. Anything that we do will benefit the rest of America. Well, with that said, the memorandum condemning and combating racism, xenophobia, and intolerance against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States. protection under the federal government that is specifically for Asian Americans. Advancing inclusions and belongings for people of all races, national origins, and ethnicities, and critical to guaranteeing the safety and security of the American people. And it goes in talking about the COVID-19 and how they've been discriminated upon, where those African American, we're never discriminated upon. We're never racially profiled. We're never racially biased, discriminated upon, hateful acts because of the color of our skin, the attribute of our characters, the formation of our bodies, the length of our hair, our sparking personalities. The federal government recognized that it has played a role in furthering the xenophobic sentiments through the actions of political leaders, including references to the COVID-19 pandemic by the geographic location of its origin. See, we need to understand that this is directly at Donald Trump for him naming COVID-19 the China flu or the Kung flu. But they get protections for this. And this particular executive order came out on January 26, 2020, 6 days after the inauguration. And then if that wasn't good enough, on the president's fact sheet, another executive order came out March 30th this year. And it says President Biden announces additional actions, additional protections to respond to anti-Asian violence, xenophobia, and bias. So move over, George Floyd. Move over, Trayvon Martin, Fidel Castillo, Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown. Move over. Even though I see foundational Black Americans getting killed, melanated Nubian people getting killed in the streets by their race soldiers, whether they be wearing a badge or not, we still do not have an executive order of protection from the federal government. See, if you knew your history, you will understand. If you read Dr. Claude Anderson's book, you will understand that there have been many policies, regulations, and laws that prevented Black people from walking down the street on the same side of the street of a white person, for obtaining a job, for even being homeless was a crime for a Black person, even though we couldn't even create our own jobs, because when we did, they would destroy our business districts. We either be in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Richmond, Virginia, or Raleigh, North Carolina. Didn't matter where we built a Black Wall Street, they destroyed it, but then again made rules, regulations, and policies to lock us up. And we all understand mass incarcerations, but yet again, another protection on the law for Asian Americans. And it states here that too many Asian Americans have been walking up and down the streets and worrying. Almost sounds like you should put Black Americans in here. Let's just see how that sounds. I'm curious, aren't you? Too many Black Americans have been walking up and down the streets and worrying. Waking up each morning the past year feeling their safety and the safety of their loved ones at stake. They've been attacked, blamed, scapegoated, and harassed. They've been verbally assaulted, physically assaulted, and killed. The conversation we had today with the Black American leaders, and that we're hearing all across the country, is that the hate and violence often hid in plain sight, and in our case, often video recorded, and it's often met with silence from political figures as well as law enforcement. That has been true throughout history for Black Americans, and that it has to change because our silence is complicit. We cannot be complicit. We have to speak out. We have to act out. President Joe Biden, March 19th of this year. What if that read Black Americans? Some of you would be raising your hand and praising the God you serve. You would say, finally, we have been delivered. But no, I added that in. We understand this is Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, AAPI, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Once again, protections under the law. This is what we get. This is a joke. And all of us have been complicit inside of it. We all have been complicit inside of this major, major joke. But it's not funny. It's not funny when you see the discrepancies in the federal government as well as the state government. And through this pandemic, we have noticed a lot of Black Americans losing their jobs, losing their lives. But instead of giving some support outside of a stimulus check, giving us a couple of $100 here, 1,000 there, and at the grand total, no more than 5,000 over the past year, even though you've been out of work, and some of you may or may have not received unemployment. And they wonder why people are scamming the government for the PPP loan, but I'll leave that for another video. But what we would rather do is to inspire, motivate, and award illegal immigrants, undocumented workers. You know, that's the term that the Democrats use. So they won't say illegal immigrants because Joe Biden is against illegal immigration. Joe Biden is against the term illegal immigrants. So undocumented workers. What are undocumented workers? Illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. They are alien to this country. They came over here illegally, not the right way. But New York thought it would be cool to have a budget of $2 billion to award to illegal immigrants. Nothing for the foundational Black Americans. They have been asking for reparations ever since 1865. Or better yet, not even asking for it, but being owed the money for our ancestors' hard work. Even to this day, we haven't got not one iota of any monetary payment. But if you are a illegal immigrant and if you are Hispanic or Asian, then guess what? The billions in federal relief spending during the coronavirus pandemic has markedly included millions of people in America, undocumented immigrants, illegal aliens. But one U.S. state is taking the opposite track, moving to offer these excluded workers who lost jobs during their crisis up to $15,600 each. Can we look at that again? It said workers who lost their jobs. So you mean to tell me that these people are over here illegally and they have jobs, where the unemployment rate for African Americans is extremely high. But people who do not even belong to this country, who are not even citizens to this country, are workers and they lose their jobs. And New York thought it would be cool to give them almost $15,000, $16,000 each. See, the first time any kind of benefits from undocumented immigrants approached the level of what other kinds of workers get, said David Discardi, Deputy Director of the Fiscal Policy Institute, a nonprofit policy research group, under a $2.1 billion plan approved last week. It's already been approved. Nearly 300,000 undocumented people in New York will be eligible for the lump sum payment, which starts at $3,200. Not your $1,400, not your $600, but $3,200. And these are the same illegal immigrants that also receive the stimulus check. Such workers make up 5% of the state workforce, mostly in frontline industries, and pay an estimate 1.1 billion in state and local taxes. See, the IRS said if you want the stimulus check, then you need to have filed your 2019 and 2020 tax return, and sometimes, in some cases, 2018. So we already know that undocumented illegal immigrants paid 1.1 billion in state and local taxes. So they received the stimulus check. But on top of the stimulus check, they also will receive $3,200. And then these so-called experts, that's what they are, so-called experts, say offering them urgently needed financial relief will help energize New York's economy as businesses look to shake off the effects of coronavirus lockdowns. Once again, the foundation of Black American community has been overlooked and undermined and ignored. This is nothing new for us. We're used to this. But for some reason, we have a large portion of the Black community going out in droves talking about the Democrats, voting for the Democrats. And again, we either be Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter until you hold these politicians' feet to the fire. They reinforce the system of white supremacy because they understand how, as a group, how we looked upon, how they frown upon us, how they stab us in the back. You know what? They don't even stab us in the back. They stab us in our chest because we're too damn stupid to realize we're being stabbed. This is a joke. It doesn't matter how much content you look at, whether it be me, Tariq Nasheed, Jason Black, aka the Black Authority, Professor Black Truth, Phyllis Scap over at the African Diaspora, Vicky Dillard, Demetra K, TD Hip Hop Media. It doesn't matter what content you looked at and who you hear it from. Some of you are still going to go out and vote for absolutely nothing. You voted for nothing, so we got nothing. Thank you very much. And for those of you, you know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking to. You went up there and you buck danced for Zaddy. And some of you swirlers out there thinking that because you have a white wife or a white husband that you're going to get something out of the deal. No, the only white husband that got something out of the deal was Kamala Harris' white husband. But that should tell you who she is. When she ran for California for the Senate, she ran on an Indian Asian American ticket. And because we're the third minority here in America, she said, I'll just switch over to black. I went to HBCU. I listened to Tupac, or as she would say, Tupac. And I had my Chuck Taylors on. But this is nothing new for us. But we continue to look at these presidents as though they're going to save us somehow. But they haven't. And they won't. Unless we continue to put pressure on them and start to hold our vote as ransom, hold our vote as a bargaining chip like each and every group. Then we need to understand that not only Asian Americans have protection, the immigrants have billions of dollars, but even those who are receiving money under the federal government, they have a piece of the budget. $2 billion every year Native Americans receive. And I just want to point out, I am not neglecting or disregarding the money that they should receive for their land being stolen, but we need to understand that a lot of Native Americans are Nubian black people from Africa. But what they have done is they have blended and blurred and swirled the Native American community. And a lot of blacks who were Native Americans or still Native Americans have been ostracized outside of those communities. But nonetheless, Native Americans still get reparations. The federal budget, I've showed this before, they receive $2 billion every year. And Native Americans, if you live on a reservation, do not pay taxes at all. They get free housing. They also get a stipend of money. Their schools are federally funded. Everything is federally funded for Native Americans. I'm not hating. I just want us to get ours. But when I look at this, it really makes me grind my gears that we continue to be stupefied over the neglect that not only the political party, the Democrats and the Republicans, but the system of white supremacy is ever so relevant, and we are too blind to see it. Senate passes largest investment in Native programs in history. More than 31 billion heading to Native American communities on top of the 2 billion they receive every year. But I think this is intriguing to read just a small portion of this. It says here, Indian Affairs has helped secure more than 31.2 billion in dedicated funding for tribal governments and Native American communities. Now, for you guys who are not familiar with how much is 31.2 billion is. Now, the point two is $2 million, but let's look at it a different way. Did you know in order for you to have $1 billion that you need $1,000,000,000 to make 1 billion? Can I say that again? In order for you to understand this, that $1 billion is $1,000,000,000, and they have literally $31,000,000,000. So picture being a millionaire, but having 31,000 millions, which is 31 billion. Just to give you a picture so you can understand. But anyway, it says $1 billion in dedicating funding for tribal governments and Native Americans, comprising the largest investment in history of Native programs. The new funding will deliver immediate relief for hard hit Native American families and support tribal nations as they build a bridge toward economic recovery. That's called money, ladies and gentlemen. But see, are Black people being hit hard? Whether it be in the streets or at your job or the job you did have. See, each group get what they actually absolutely need. See, Asian Americans are the richest minority group next to the Jews. They're the richest minority group. So they don't really need the money, but they need the protection. See, it's not like Black Americans. We have always needed protection ever since we landed foot in this country. But for those who already get yearly stipends for the federal government to run their schools, their community centers, their police stations, because we need to understand that Native land is sovereign land. They're considered their own country, but they're being funded by our country and with you and I tax dollars. And how do you think that these executive orders are being funded? By tax dollars. You and I. Oh, I'm going to tax the rich at 40%, but whether you're low class, middle class, you're still being taxed. Native communities need relief. We listened and we took action. This is such a joke. With more than 31 billion for tribal governments and Native programs, the American Rescue Plan delivers the largest one-time investment to Native communities in history, said Senator Swartz, a member of the Senate Appropriations Committee. The historic funding is a down payment on the federal government's trust responsibility to Native communities and will empower American Indians, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians to tackle COVID-19's impact on their communities. It's a down payment. See, usually when they use the term down payment, that means this is the first of many. This is the first of many installment payments, and that's what we need to understand. Again, every group gets some form of monetary payment or protection under the law, except for foundational Black Americans. I just want to make this very, very clear. I want to be very clear and concise that we know this. It doesn't matter how they pander to us and how they get out and protest and they say the word Black and they appoint some Black bootlicks that would still support the system of white supremacy as long as they get a position and job and tell us what Joe Biden is going to do and what he hasn't done. And Ladies and gentlemen, have you noticed that everything I've been showing you that he's been doing everything in his first 100 days, that he has yet to do anything for Black Americans? And if you heard that video like I did, that he has the backs of Black Americans, he told us, "You've had our back, and now I have your back." This has been consistent over the course of time. This has been consistent over the course of time. And yet again, we continue to get our booties to the polls and vote Democrat. And some may vote Republican, but there's no difference. There's no difference at all. There's no difference at all. This is the problem that we consistently see over and over again. When are we going to be tied to truly be lied to? I mean, consistently here. Do you mind, family, if I take a moment here and show you something? Can we all listen in at this? This is one of the times that Joe Biden was talking about the support of the African American community. He continues to tell us all the support that he has received, but yet again has done nothing for us. See, this is the benign neglect that we have to actually realize and open our eyes up to. So hopefully you understand. Community that have not. I have more people supporting me in the Black community that have nods for me because they know me. They know who I am. Three former chairs of the Black Caucus. The only Black African American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people. No, my point no, is, that's not true. The other one is true. Family, this is the continued benign neglect of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And this is when they was running for presidency. I mean, she's laughing at her now president. But let's get into some more first 100 days. But this order is to show you a comparison contrast. And this is where Donald Trump was in office. And you would think that Donald Trump wouldn't allow anything to occur for Hispanic Americans, but indeed he did. Even with Donald Trump. As you can tell right here, it says document type, presidential document. Can we all see this? Presidential document. Agency Executive Office of the President. What comes out the Executive Office of the President? Executive orders. Presidential document type, executive order. And what does this have? By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, and in order to improve Hispanic Americans' access to education and economic opportunities, it is hereby ordered as follows. The success of Hispanic Americans is integral to the economic future of our country. See, there really doesn't matter what side you pick, Democrat or Republican. That's why I stand the test of time and just look at it from a view. I'm not politically affiliated with any group, not even the independents. Now, I must confess that one time I wasn't independent. That's because I understood that whether I was a Republican or Democrat, that no group was going to do anything for me. So I just took myself out of the picture. I just took myself out of the picture. Now, just from a blast from the past, I would like to show you very quickly that Barack Obama, we understand he did nothing for African Americans, Black Americans, foundation of Black Americans in this country. And he recently came out talking about white guilt, and that's why he didn't pass reparations, that the country will have white guilt. So why do you guys continue to support Native Americans? No white guilt there. Oh, that's because 5 to 10% of the population who are blonde hair, blue eyes, actually consider themselves Native Americans. But this is what he did for a group of people that their tragedy, that the Holocaust didn't even occur in this country. I mean, I understand illegal immigrants getting billions of dollars from New York, illegal immigrants getting protections and sanctions under the federal government, under Joe Biden, and they're reversing a lot of the policies that Donald Trump had in place. I understand. Not really. But when I look at this, I'm like, he gave what to who? Didn't their tragedy, didn't this very tumultuous time happen in Nazi Germany at the time of these Jews? But, and then he said, well, why did they get this money? Was it for health care? Was it for protection? What was this money for? Well, stated here it says, these are our mothers and fathers, our teachers and our mentors. They deserve to live their remaining years in dignity, and this award will help them make that hope a reality. This reward, this reality. These are our fathers and mothers and teachers and mentors. In dignity. Yeah. What do Black Americans know about dignity and fathers and mothers and mentors? Who was a part of this? Why is this so important? Because once again, Biden launched the initiative. Biden launched the initiative in December 2013. The White House in 2014 named a special envoy to community to coordinate volunteer activity to assist the survivors. Yet again, benign neglect. See, if you really do a track record, ladies and gentlemen, you really do a timeline, you will see that over and over again, foundational Black Americans get overlooked time and time and time again. What about the time that Obama gave 1,000,000 acres to another Native American tribe? It says right here, in a victory for Native American tribes, Obama named new monuments in Utah and Nevada. But wait, there's more. It says here that the Bears Ears National Monument in Utah will cover 1.35 million acres in the Four Corners region, the White House said, in victory for Native American tribes and conservationists. The designation protects the land that is considered sacred and is home to an estimated 100,000 archaeological sites, including ancient cliff dwellings. So basically, Native Americans have received 1.35 million acres under the federal government that was given by who? Barack Obama. See, they can do everything for Native Americans, Hispanics, Asians, immigrants, LGBT. I didn't even get on LGBTQI that much because we already know all the protections that they have. And it's mostly for the white, Asian, Hispanic LGBT community, but somehow some Black Americans believe that they have those things protections until they get bopped across the head from a race soldier. Now, the thing that you would believe that you will want to have tangible, like monetary payments, grants, do you believe that you will receive that under Joe Biden? Because last time I checked, Biden made a lot of promises about race. And the question is, can he keep them? Now, this is from PolitiFact, and we're going to jump right down to the meat and potatoes of this. Reparations, education, and housing. And it says here excuse me, advocates for reparations say it would be a way to make amends to the legacy endured by those descended from millions who were enslaved for centuries when the U.S. permitted human bondage. Biden promised, listen to this, to support a study, not a bill, not a grant, not monetary payments, but to support a study of reparations for African Americans. And this is nothing but HR 40 all over again. I can't tell you how old HR 40 is. It's probably about 40 years. But he didn't commit to supporting monetary reparations. Can I see that? But he did not commit to monetary reparations. But as you can tell, immigrants get money, Hispanics get money with education and economics, the Jews got money, and nothing wrong with that. See, my thing is, I'm not bashing any other group. Asians got protections, Native Americans got land and money, $31 billion. But when you look at what we get no promises. But we are the one who actually voted in Joe Biden because Georgia was a swing state. And Black Americans went out in droves to support Joe Biden, thinking that he was going to do something for us, not knowing that he was going to do absolutely nothing. Because this has been the result of voting for Democrats, voting for Republicans over and over again. House Democrats introduced bills since 1989 to develop proposals for reparations, but efforts have languished. A 2019 House bill to study reparation had 173 co-sponsors, but never reached a vote. Never reached a vote, even for the study of reparations. Getting it through the Senate will be a litmus test about his power and the power of Democrats in that body, Carter said. Biden's other promises that would benefit people of color span the cycle. They included providing affordable child care, making historical Black colleges and universities tuition free for all families with incomes below $125,000, and increasing access to affordable housing. I could read on, but I really think that you get where I'm going here. That unless you demand and bargain, my family, we will never get anything with this government, this white supremacist government, and all the race soldiers therein. Because we probably have one more term. We probably have one more term. And let me just say this: do not be fooled, do not be tricked, do not be coerced, do not be hoodwinked or bamboozled about the same tactics that these politicians, whether they be Democrats or Republican. The reason why you'll see a lot of the Black media, you'll see a lot of Black empowerment revolutionaries go hard at the Democrats because they're the ones who pander to the Black community the most. And in return, we get absolutely nothing. So when you see a lot of Black faces in white places, don't think that they're on your side, because all skin folk are not your kinfolk. You need to do your research on these people. And most of them, believe it or not, are not even from this country. And why does that mean so much? Because they're from countries where they were colonized by white men. See, there's a difference between oppression from colonization and oppression and discrimination and being descendants of slavery and descendants of slaves. It's a huge difference. If you go to Africa and you notice that most African women, if they ever been to America or the UK, have dated white men. Why is that? They've always seen white men in their majority Black country in positions of power and very, very rich, even knowing the oppression and the takeover of their governments, and totally have annihilated their countries and left their countries for shambles and ran back to Europe to spend all the money that they're stolen from those African countries with their natural resources, minerals, and other products and goods. And then when you do the histories on these politicians in America, these are simply immigrants from the Caribbean, Africa. Majority of them, believe it or not. They're not foundational Black Americans with a Black experience. And if anybody tells me and asks me, when is the first time? Who is the first Black president? Unfortunately, I cannot say Barack Obama or Kamala Harris because Barack Obama has never had a Black experience. Barack Obama's father is from Kenya and his mother is from Kansas. He's never had a Black experience. He simply ran for the Senate in Chicago. He didn't grow up in Chicago. He grew up in Indonesia and he grew up in Hawaii in a very, very privileged household. Then you move over to Kamala Harris. She's never had a Black experience. The closest thing that she got to Black was going to a HBCU. She grew up in a Indian household and her father's Jamaican. None of them are foundational Black Americans, meaning that their roots stem from this country, or their ancestors are ancestors and descendants of slaves. So both presidents are essentially mixed presidents that are non-foundational Black Americans. And if you knew anything about Obama, he told us when he was talking to Tom Joyner, he said, Tom, I don't associate myself with Black because Black has no standing at law. So for those of you who don't understand that terminology, I encourage you to do a quick Google search and just type in Black has no standing at law. This is the Black Post. This evening, the message was delivered. Whether you loved it or hated it, now you know that your President, Joe Biden, first 100 days was a fucking joke.